Hello YouTube, today we're talking posture, and this is something that applies to pretty much every single human being on earth, lifters or non-lifters. It is critical for long-term health, and that is for multiple reasons. First off, let me say that I personally believe that there is a universal proper posture that people should adopt during their everyday life and during certain tasks. Today we're only going to be talking about static posture. I will make a different video on dynamic postures that people use in everyday activities, when they pick up a box, when they move a couch, etc. Because these are usually the moments in normies life for non-lifters where they get injured. And this is important because we spend much more time doing those activities than we do actually lifting weights. We lift more tonnage with heavy weights just by virtue of it being an activity that is resistance training. But you pick up pieces of paper or small things much more often than you deadlift. But that'll be for a different time. For now, I want to talk about the way you stand, the way you sit, the way you let your body rest when you yourself are resting. All of these are very important. And for me, there are cues to follow, and there are certain things that everyone should try to replicate and emulate as much as they can, because they transfer to a better quality of life, but they also transfer to a better quality of training, and I'm going to get into that. So, what is, in my opinion, proper posture? Well, I personally was always told by people who were my teachers, be it in martial arts or in sports, that you should imagine a thread going through your body and exiting at the top of the head. And you need to imagine that this thread is being constantly pulled up, right? And that the entirety of the spine is being pulled straight by it. So when you stand, you should be completely aligned. Everything should be aligned. The head should be looking forward. The chin should be high. And you should always maintain that proper rigid posture. You do not want to be overextended, meaning that when you stand, if you look at x-rays or if you look at anatomy charts, you will see that even when people are standing straight, even people with proper posture, the spine is never straight. There's always a curvature in the spine. The reason why is we're naturally standing like this because it absorbs shocks. If you stay fully upright, your spine is now aligned, and it's much easier for damage to be created because there is nothing to dampen the shock. There are also other issues with standing too straight. For example, people who have done certain endeavors where you're supposed to be standing straight for a long period of time, they will know that when you straighten your knees, you risk fainting. Why? Because you're cutting circulation in your lower body, and you can eventually just pass out, and it happens very quickly. So there's always going to be a certain degree of flexion in the human body, because we're not stiff. You're not supposed to be stiff, but it should be reduced to a minimum. So when you have that proper posture of what you believe to be a straight spine, a head that is looking forward, so the neck is also aligned with the spine, in reality there's a slight bend, but that's fine, because the opposite would be to be like this, and this is not sustainable. So you want to have a little bit of bend, but you don't want that bend to be exaggerated. Why? The bend is just the natural way your body hangs because of the mass, right? Because of the arm being forward, etc. You don't want to surrender to that bend. You don't want to give up. You fight it all the time. That's proper posture. People who have poor posture, usually what do we call poor posture? They round. And why do they round? Because the weight of the head, the weight of the arms is pulling it forward, and they are giving up. And the reason why people give up is a proper posture demands a lot of abdominal strength. You use your core to be able to maintain that posture, and you also have to have very strong upper back muscle, because a lot of the rounding is caused by the shoulders rounding. So if you want to pull the shoulders back and down, it needs to be tight, so you're recruiting a lot of traps as well. It's the same for the neck. The muscles of the neck are going to keep the head straight. The issue that arises with poor posture is that it's a vicious circle, because the worse the posture is, the more you run forward, the more you rely on the structure, meaning that you're letting your body just hang by its skeleton and its tendon. And the more you do that, the less you recruit the muscles that are supposed to keep the proper posture, the less they get worked, the weaker they become, the worse the posture becomes. This is why you end up with people who didn't really have any issues, degenerative issues of the spine, but they built themselves up to be completely incapable of having proper posture, because their posture went to the dogs over the years. And the reason why I made this video is because I was watching a clip of a guy who was at a restaurant table, and I saw immediately that he had poor posture because I could see him from the side. And then I realized something that was chilling. To look at the menu that was laid on the table, he didn't even have to move his neck, he just had to slightly move the torso forward and bend the angle, and he could look at it. Which means what? To have a neck angle of 45 degrees that was parallel with the table, he barely had to employ any neck flexion at all. For someone like me, if I want to look at the menu that's here, I need to do this. So that's a lot of neck flexion. Or if I don't want to move the neck, I need to do this, which is a lot of torso angle. But he had such a bad posture, and his head, he had forward head posture, and the neck was so overextended already, he was sort of like a turtle. So he only had to do this, and he could, like, it's like his head was like peering forward. It was awful, and I felt bad for him, because that's the type of posture that is going to take a lot of work to recover from. And you can make sure that that never happens to you by following those advices. Always have your chin up, eyes looking forward, chest out, shoulders back. And you always stay like this. When you sit, when you walk. When you walk, it's the same thing, straight. You don't want to slouch as you walk, because keep in mind, the time you spend sitting, the time you spend walking, that's exercise. You're teaching your body how to move when you do that, and you do that a ton. Those are teaching moments. And if you let your body do whatever it wants and just degenerate, it will keep doing that, and it will get worse and worse. This is why also, and now I'm transitioning into the issues that can create. This is why so many people have back pain, neck pain, even though they never work out. Is because at some point, your muscles are now so atrophied and your posture is so terrible, and you're relying so much on the skeletal structure that it starts to give. And everything then is awful, because if you want to get back to a proper posture, now you're going to have to fight through the pain too, even before you can correct that posture. So always imagine that thread that is pulling you, it's elongating you, and it's keeping you straight. When I used to teach kids, I would always tell them spine. And when I said spine, it meant straight. And you could see the entire classroom straighten up. Why? Because we naturally slouch. And that's also the issue. The reason why so many people have that bad posture is because of school. You spend so much time on that desk that eventually it's tiring to be very straight and be like this. It's not practical. So your entire body becomes rounded over that desk, and you become that creature that exists over that desk. And then when you go in real life, you're like this. So of course and this is awful. And so that's for people who don't lift, which is not the majority of this channel. That's already bad, and those people need to work on that. But as far as lifting goes, it's even worse. And I think this is the reason why so many people usually have, come on light, come on, okay. This is also the reason why so many people have shoulder issues, so many people have lower back pain when they lift. It's because if you go into lifting and you're already like this, how are you going to bench? You're going to bench like this. How are you going to deadlift? You're going to deadlift all rounded. All of these are going to carry over. And I know that there is now what I would call a subcurrent of injury prevention talk. People will tell you that there is no such thing as bad form, that you cannot prevent injuries by promoting good form. And these people have now started saying that there is no such thing as bad posture. I couldn't disagree more because of the experience I've had. People who already have a tendency to have a slouched back, they carry that over to their deadlift and the back pain just gets worse because they're not using the muscular system to move that weight, because they already have built in their body a spine that is already over reliant on its structure. And these are the type of people who get disc injuries. So when you move on to lifting, you need to also have that same philosophy of proper posture at all times, because they bounce back to one another. It could also be possible for someone to have proper posture in everyday life who lift too heavy. The load is going to just be completely overbearing and destroy the proper posture, and it can have repercussions in everyday life. You're going to see that people who hurt their back, you would think that they would after that adopt a proper posture, but from what I've seen, people who get a lower back injury, they tend to round over even more because they try to protect that injury. You don't want that. So when you deadlift with a neutral spine. When you do squats, you avoid knee valgus. When you do bench press, you tug the shoulders back. All of these are going to be things that are going to prevent injuries, that are going to keep you in the game for a long time, and are going to help you accumulate the tonnage. But all of that comes from proper posture. And proper posture, it's also interesting because even though people will tell you, oh, there's no such thing, if I show you a picture of bad posture, you will be able to tell. And so the two areas that you need to pay attention to, especially, is the head position. You don't want that forward head position, and I found that neck curls actually help with that because they straighten the neck, they hypertrophy the neck, and they help you keep that head stable. And after that, it's also the position of the shoulders and the thoracic extension. Thoracic rounding leads to lumbar rounding, so you want the shoulders to be back and you want the thoracic spine to be always straight. So that's going to be that for this video. You absolutely do not want to let your posture degrade to the point that it affects your quality of life. It would be terrible. So I advise you really pay attention and you always remember the thread. So that's it for the day. Thank you for watching.